The following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and some really gnarly finger trauma.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
I'm Steve.
Knew you were going to say something. And this is podcast episode number 288 with our depressing yet stubborn continuing coverage of the always disappointing Fear of the Walking Dead. This week we are discussing episode 2 of season 8. Title of the episode is Blue Jay. Yeah, so there's that. So before we started something last week, before we get into discussing details and etc. about the episode, we're sort of we're challenging ourselves to talk about something positive. This is the final season of Fear the Walking Dead, and we do harken back and remember a simpler time, a better time, when we actually enjoyed some of these episodes and enjoyed the characters, enjoyed the writing, the situations, the locales. You know, we enjoyed a lot more back in the day, and we thought
it would have been in a knucklehead-free time.
Yes, the knucklehead-free zone, as it were, and we thought it would be cool, since we're not expecting to like very much, if at all, with this season. We thought it would be nice to sort of celebrate as they're on their way out, to talk about at least one thing a week that we enjoyed. And instead of the pressure of having to talk about this season, we wanted to open it up to the whole series. So I went first last week. Steve was a little on the spot. I sort of came up with it on the fly. So Steve, your turn to go first this week. What is something positive or something you have liked about Fear the Walking Dead in the past?
Shoot. That's it's hard to remember the before time. When before the current people were running the show rudderlessly into the ground, but yes. I think it would definitely be. I would have to say I do fondly remember and miss Nick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nicholas Clark there, the drug-addled, troubled youth who, basically liked to just kind of gut himself up and go stroll around with the dead from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
I liked the Clark family and that dynamic that they had going. I liked the idea of Madison, really basically willing to do whatever it takes to keep her kids safe.
Mm-hmm.
And if that means she's gonna, lock the gate and burn the crazy lady in her house fire, that's what she's gonna do,
Right.
So I miss that. I think the show is really, since the new guys took over, they've just been struggling to find any kind of commitment like that, and they have Morgan going all over the place and everybody going all over the place, and so I harken back to that, and I miss Frank Delane and his portrayal of Nick. So that would be the thing right off the top of my head. What about you?
Choice. I know that last week I talked about season 3, which is the one at the Auto Ranch. A majority of it happens at the preppers, the autos, and I said overall, to me, that's my favorite season overall. And I'm going to sort of challenge myself to find like an episode or two in there that really stand out to me. So I've got some time here, because we're not finished yet. We still got another 10 weeks to go. But I wanted to point out one thing that I thought was really cool. One of the things that made season 3 really great to me was they found the writers found a way in season 3 to let Alicia Clark be a teenager. And she was able to sort of lean into being a teenager, not in that like petulant child kind of way like we had in season 1. They were still sort of figuring out who Alicia Debnam Carey was as an actor and what she could do and etc. They were all sort of finding their way in that season 1 there. Things got better in season 2, but in season 3, I really feel like Alicia Debnam Carey, it was probably her strongest season. She's done some kick-ass stuff since then for her character, but I think overall the development, what she was able to sort of accomplish, I mean, how can you forget that episode where she was in that storage down below? It was one of the most tense episodes of this whole series when she was surrounded by the dead. And I can't even remember all the details. I just remember her being on like a pile of dead people and they were all sort of locked into this sort of prepper storage facility or whatever, and then people started to turn and it was so tense. But so she went through these traumatic experiences, but there were young people that were there at the auto ranch, people that were more age appropriate for her, and she was able to sort of have some real authentic teenage young adult sort of experiences that I think in the zombie apocalypse, a lot of people her age never really got to have. They didn't get a chance. I mean, and she was still doing some hardcore stuff during the day, but like at night they would sit around the fire and like her and the other, you know what I mean? I just thought that was really cool that they, she didn't get like the stereotypical teenagery stuff. There was more to it. It had a lot more meat to it. So I thought that was great. But I really, really enjoyed that part of season 3. So yeah. So now that we've discussed things that we liked, let's talk about this week's episode. And Steve, sadly, you get to go first this week as well on your quick thoughts. What did you think of episode 2 here, Blue Jay?
Oh boy. Where do I begin?
At the beginning?
Yeah, really. I just, this was not good. There just were, the time jump is just really a problem. That it's so long, and we're supposed to believe that these people are doing the things that they're doing. Here we have June, and she's, running around, knocking out these collector guys and cutting off their fingers. And, at one point she says, I just wanted to leave. And yet it's like, okay. And yet if that's all you wanted to do, then why didn't you just leave? Right. Instead, you've spent years apparently cutting off these dudes' fingers. Why? If you would have just walked 20 minutes a day in one direction, in like a year from now, you would be miles and miles and miles away from Padre and never have to deal with them again. So they have this crazy, and I mean the knuckleheads, they have this vision of what the story is going to be, and they're just kind of, smushing these characters into it and being like, it'll work, trust me, it'll work. And I'm sorry, I don't see it. So it had some nice visual stuff, the ghouls looked interesting and stuff like that, but yeah, there was very little in this episode. I felt really sorry for Austin Emilio, and for Jenna Elfman and Evangelista, because they had to say all that terrible stuff. Yet again, we got an episode where they can't tell multiple stories at the same time. We got a little bit of Morgan at the end, Morgan and Madison, and then I think one of our feedbacks that we'll get to at the end, they mentioned this, and I was going to mention it too, is that there was really, it wouldn't have been too difficult to tell both of these stories in one episode. But apparently that's just a little too advanced for Knucklehead number 2. I just, I'm just full on hate watching it at this point. So there's not much for me that made me smile at all. So what about you?
I strangely enough had a couple of moments, which we'll get to when we talk details. I had a couple of moments that, as I described before we got started, in a much higher quality show, probably would have stood out, I think, a lot better as like, oh, that's an interesting choice, or oh, that, that didn't fully do what I think they wanted to do, but I like how they were going in this direction or whatever. There were like one or two moments that did that for me, but unfortunately, when it's surrounded by so much stuff that's just not good, it drowns it out, so you have a hard time. So I made sure to sort of make notes about the stuff that I thought was interesting. The episode overall is still a pile of doo-doo, but there were a couple of things that I thought were interesting. I want to make sure we talk about them, but overall, again, we've slid into that area like we, back in the day, we'd be like, oh, this was like 60-40 good, bad. And we're really in that like 95-5 of bad versus good. They're just, yeah, we'll get into more of it. But yeah, just not a great episode at all. There were a couple of tiny glimmers that I thought were interesting, but not enough to lift the episode out of the pile of doo-doo. So, yeah, so there's that. So, so let's move on then to our episode description, and then we'll get into our finer points. So, back to you, sir.
All right, well, this week's episode is being brought to you by... Hey there, bird people. How many times have you been trying to do something in the zombie apocalypse only to have your fingers get in the way? Stupid fingers! What if there was a way to get those pesky fingers out of the way permanently? Well, now there is with Dr. June Phalange's digital removal choo-choo train. That's right, Dr. June Phalange has a permanent solution to your finger problem. Her patented 3-step procedure of dart, shot, and snip. Ow, ow, ow! Will have you back in the apocalypse in no time. Of course, you won't be able to shoot your gun, but that's not really our problem. So come on down to Dr. June Phalange's digital removal choo-choo train and get those nasty fingers off your hands and into her jar today. Dr. June not responsible for picking your nose after the procedure. All right, well, I know I can't wait to go get my fingers cut off.
Right. Why wouldn't you? Who needs them?
I know,
Who needs a trigger finger?
Stupid fingers. Yeah.
Maybe I do need them to pick my nose. So maybe I don't want to do this. I don't know. You make a fair point about the picking the nose thing.
Just remember what Abe Lincoln always said. You can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't
have your
friend's nose.
Yeah. Or have your friends pick your nose.
Be very, very close friends.
Yeah.
All right. So
that being said,
our episode description is as follows. And again, this is for episode 8.2, Blue Jay. And the description is: after fleeing Padre, June's safety and solitude is threatened by an unwelcome reunion and a desperate father's search for his dead, irradiated daughter. And that is your episode description.
I feel like, haven't we had this storyline with June before?
Oh my God!
Like,
this is the
you know what I mean?
Time this thing's come around.
Desperate father search for his missing daughter. June's safety and solitude is threatened. Like, how many times has she been off by her own, and then eventually someone she saves someone and it resurrects her brain and makes her feel better about herself or whatever,
Yeah.
She's like the female Morgan. It's terrible.
Yeah. It's apparently it's the only thing that the Knuckleheads can remember about June's character.
Yeah.
Is that, she had the daughter thing, and so they're just gonna keep going to that well repeatedly. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. So that being said, let's cover the non-actionable items, I suppose. Writer director for the episode, and then we'll chat a little bit about the title card. So,
Okay.
writer directors.
Well, the writers are yet once again the Canuckle heads.
Yes.
So I'm wondering if they're going to be the writers for all of the episodes now. You wonder.
I mean, why make someone else write this shit?
Right, exactly. Maybe they can't. Maybe all the other writers went, yeah, I'm not going to write that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we have, the Knuckleheads are the writers yet again, and the director this week is a different person from last week. You remember last week it was Michael Satrazemis.
Yes.
And this week they brought in another veteran of the Walking Dead universe, and that's Heather Cappiello.
Mm-hmm.
And she has worked primarily in Fear, but she also did a little bit of World Beyond. She directed 5 episodes total of Fear, all with the Knuckleheads. She started in season 6 with Handle with Care, which you remember was an episode with Daniel. It might have been the one with the cat. I can't remember. I didn't look it up, but it's either the one with the cat or it's the one where he starts losing his mind. I can't remember. And then she also directed the USS Pennsylvania, which I believe was the penultimate episode of season 6, where they get to the submarine, and we get a little bit of Riley's backstory. Then in season 7 last season, she did 7.7, which was entitled The Portrait, which is the episode where Strand is having the person paint the portrait of him, and then Morgan and Baby Mo show up, and Baby Mo is sick, and then the bad guy is like catapulting the irradiated walkers into the building, right? And Morgan and Strand end up, the building's on fire, and they they end up trying to save the baby, and then Morgan poisons Strand and so on. Not a very good one, but she did that one. And then she also directed 7.9, which was entitled Follow Me, and that was an Alicia episode. I believe it's the one where she meets the deaf guy who is like the musician.
Yeah.
I believe it is that one, and she's, of course, has the fever and is seeing the hallucinations and is, being told to follow, basically saying, follow me to Padre and so on. But anyway, she did those.
Yeah.
Then she did Blue Jay this year. And then over on World Beyond, she directed 2 episodes in season 2. She did 2.5 Quatre Voix, which you remember, we like that title.
Yeah.
And then 2.6, Who Are You? So 2 right in the middle of season 2. And I couldn't tell you about what Quatre Voix was about because there's like 9 plots happening at once. But 2.6, Who Are You? That is the episode that Jadis came back in.
Oh,
so
well, look at that.
It's where Huck is talking to Jadis, and we kind of find out what Jadis's deal is and so on. So so that's what she did. So she has I think a good grasp of working in the universe, and they like working with her because this is the 5th time they've brought her in, but she really didn't have a lot to work with in this one. So
yeah. I mean, and after doing the Jadis episode, she knows how to do unwelcome reunions.
There you go.
There you go. Except in this case, it's an unwelcome reunion, but it's also poorly written, too. Yeah. At least the Jadis one was a little more interesting.
It was.
Title card was June, not surprising.
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot of detail around the edges. It was mostly just like her cabin, if memory serves, and maybe the boat was at the bottom. I don't really remember a lot of it.
Actually, I believe it was the train, not her cabin.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like part of one of the train cars, and then I think she had the gun, the dart gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but they did bring the jangly Western music back.
Yeah.
So they had that version of the theme for this one, and really last week they didn't really have much music at all for the title card. So it
was mostly just like sound, like whooshing and whatever. Like, okay.
And it's funny because when I was watching and I was whooshing, I was watching something else.
Look at what you did there.
Oh, yeah. Good
So
night, everybody.
Good night. All right. So right off the bat,
Mm-hmm.
are you okay? Are you in a safe space? Can we?
Oh, yeah,
can,
I am.
Can we talk about the finger trauma?
We sure can. And you know why we can? It's because the knuckleheads have such weak...
Knuckles.
See? See what I did there? No. The reason why is because the knuckleheads have such weak stomachs. They couldn't even show her cut off their fingers. Not entirely.
No.
You know, I mean, it's like, really? You couldn't even show that? It just to me, it shows me how ill-suited these two guys are for this universe to be directing the action. But when she started to do it, and she, at first I wasn't really sure, but when she injected the in between the dude's knuckle.
Yeah, that was a sign.
Yeah, and then I realized, she was like wiping the disinfectant, the iodine stuff on the finger, which is what you do to like prep someone for surgery.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as when I saw her inject the guy, then I realized what she was doing before that with the iodine, and I'm like, is she gonna cut that dude's finger off? And then sure enough, she did, and I'm just like, oh my god, she's cutting his finger off. So yeah, it was definitely traumatic for me there. But they cut away from it so fast, I was just like, oh well, that was like the PG version. Yeah, you know. So. But yeah, I appreciate the concern that you had when you're like, Steve ain't gonna like this.
As soon as I saw that scene, I was like, this isn't gonna go well when we record. he's not gonna be able to be like, Mommy, I can't look through. Oh, geez. So the other thing too that makes it feel like non-realistic is, you made a note here too, where, of course, June has medical supplies, of course. Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't she? Right. And they're not just medical supplies. Like any other person would have medical supplies. She has pristine medical supplies. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with any of her like syringes and vials and any of that stuff. Mm-hmm. So there's that. And then she also has unlimited power for her walkie-talkie.
See that was the thing. She takes it out of a charger, and I'm like, well, what is that plugged into?
Does it plug into the swamp? Does the swamp have an electrical outlet?
Yeah, again.
I don't, because that's the thing. I wish people would understand. Like, I don't. If they have like the base stations for all of these, like, these walkie-talkies. Yes, you've got a place to charge them. That makes sense. You can charge the walkie-talkie all you want. The point is, where the hell do they get the power to have the base station plugged into anything? Right.
And you kind of get the sense that she's like living in like this shack.
Yeah.
Yet it has a power, an outlet that's wired into some power grid that still works.
Yeah, it must. I really wish they would just pan, like, if they would just pan the camera and show that, like, the setup is, like, some hornswoggled, like, old car battery that's been cleaned up and has, like, all this, like, if it's some rigmarole setup, that would make more sense to me. Yes, this far into the apocalypse, that shouldn't work either. But if you show that they had to make some sort of Herculean effort in order to get the said electricity, then I would buy it a little bit more. Still fantastical, but like, hey, I dare to dream that a car battery might work like 10 years later as well. Maybe.
I was it's a very good point. And I was trying to remember back in season 7, there was an episode, and I think it was called Sadie Hawkins, and it was about June and John Dory Sr. in their little shelter.
Yes.
And didn't they have like a bicycle that one or the other would get on and pedal, and that would charge the batteries or something?
Yes.
So I mean, they like the knuckleheads at one point tried to write a plausibility of like, see, they're like creating their own electricity here. But I mean, at this point, they're just like, it just works.
Yeah,
You know,
it
they
just we don't know how it works. It just does.
it does, yeah.
And further highlighting the ridiculous electrical, like resources that she has
Hmm?
is she doesn't just use like a knife to cut the finger off. She has a friggin' Dremel saw.
Yeah.
So she does this clean cut, like zzz, like a surgical saw that goes right
Well,
across. And I'm like,
are you sure? Because I thought she used like an X-Acto knife. She
I thought,
she she had a torch, and then she had a thing that had a circular piece of metal that she would heat up with the torch, that she would cauterize the finger after she cut it off. But I thought she just used a blue, like an X-Acto knife kind of a thing.
I mean, she could have. I distinctly remember there being some type of Dremel, like handheld saw of some kind that might, but maybe I was just, and let's be honest, people, I didn't watch this episode twice. So,
Actually, I unfortunately I did watch it twice, and I know, I'm crazy. But I believe when she is like gathering up her crap in the very opening shots, they
Yep.
do show like a bone saw or something there in her little shack.
Okay.
So you're not wrong. You did see it, but I'm pretty sure when
just
she
wasn't
actually
used.
when she actually does the thing, and if it's not there, then it's in the train clinic thing that they go to. Somewhere there is a shot of that, because I do remember now that you mention it, there was like a cutting saw type thing. But yeah, she actually, because if you remember, when she starts cutting the finger, they show her and she's like, it's from the side, and she cuts about halfway through, and then they cut away. No pun intended, from that scene. And then I believe then like it cuts to her coming back, and she sets all her gear down, and then she unzips the one pocket of the bag, and she takes out the fingers and puts them in the in the pickled egg jar that she has.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's pretty awesome. The pickled egg jar. Ugh,
yeah.
Gross.
It's again, I'm sure younger folk don't remember, but there was a time when you could go into stores and they would have like a big jar of like pickled eggs that you could like just buy one, and they'd fish one out and give it to you. And it was disgusting as all get out, but it was a thing.
You can still, I've seen them at some delis. It depends on how old school it is.
And so some delis still do like pickles. I know, like you can get like actual pickles out of the pickle jar too. Yeah, but this was a little cooler because it was fingers. But
yeah. Oh God, yeah. Oh,
the only other thing I have on the walkie-talkies that it just also stretches credibility way beyond is, we all have phones, we all have things that have batteries, and how much, or how we're all aware of how quickly the battery life goes down.
Right.
And so if we're supposed to believe that these things were made, like 10 years ago, right, when the world was still a thing, and yet they're still working in any capacity. I mean, how many electronic devices have you had that just die after a while and that you can't turn them on anymore because the battery, which is a non-replaceable rechargeable battery, just dies?
Yeah, eventually they don't charge anymore.
Right, yeah.
They lose their ability to charge.
Yeah, I remember my one of my older iPhones, either a 5 or a 6, it got to the point where I couldn't take it off the charger or it would die. And literally I kept it on there because I was buying a new one, and I wanted to be able to, transfer over everything. Yeah. And so literally that phone just sat on the charger, because if I took it off, it would be powered up for like a minute, and then it would die. And literally once I transferred it over and it died, I couldn't restart it, even if I put it back on the charger. So again, that problem doesn't happen here, because these people, and first of all, everybody has a walkie-talkie, and they all always work.
Yeah. Yeah. And those rechargeable batteries, they live on forever and ever. I mean, they die down, but once you charge them, they're fine.
They are. They're fine.
I mean,
Absolutely.
it's amazing. Another thing, I mean, since we're talking about stuff that makes no sense,
Mm.
I mean, that's pretty much the whole episode. I find it hard to believe that she has been doing. They said on the walkie-talkie that she has been, quote, I'm using air quotes here, doing this for years.
Yep.
The whole cutting off the fingers when they're like, oh, we got hit, and oh my God, she cut her fingers off, and they were like, you guys, they've been doing this for years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so two things. First of all, they know that this person, whoever it is attacking people in certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe June moves around and hits different, but she clearly has been in that location for at least a small period of time. So why wouldn't you set a trap to try and get her? Why you send out like a boat like they had? Every time they sent a boat, I was like, are those mannequins? Because they were sitting so still.
Mm-hmm.
And each time I saw a boat and they had the people in it and I thought they were mannequins, I was like, this is when they're going to catch her.
Right.
Because she's going to shoot and there'll be like some mannequin or some blow up doll or something. And then someone's going to come from the side and get her. But that's how, ambush happens in logical TV shows, but not on this one. I just never understood, like, how do you allow someone to do that kind of thing for, as Shrike said, years?
Yeah, that thought occurred to me too. I'm like, really? So the Padre people never, ever attempted to get her?
Yeah.
That it makes no sense. And I would also point out, I did a little research. I was motivated enough. I looked up pneumatic dart guns on the old internet, and they do exist. They are things, and I found some of them that kind of looked like the one she had. But all the ones that I found, they all said they have like a maximum range of like 150 or maybe 200 feet. And I'm sorry, those guys were a long way away from
and
where
she
oh
hit
my
them
God.
like they were right in front of her, like perfect target.
Every one. And again, remember, she's not shooting a bullet that's, going through a rifled barrel so it's going to be spinning and be accurate. She's shooting like a freaking dart.
Yeah.
Yet again, unerring accuracy from extremely long distances. And I'm, not that you can't use a dart gun to tranquilize people, you can, but not at that range, at least not according to the stuff I found. Now, maybe, again, I'm not an expert, so I don't know. Maybe there is a gun out there that can shoot, 50 yards or something like that. But I don't know. It seemed, I was, when she first did it, I was just like, really? She can hit those guys that far away? But apparently she could. So, yeah.
And I don't remember in any previous seasons June being one of those people that like, people were like, wow, you're good. You're an accurate, like I could see that, I think Alicia was very accurate. And so they would depend on her for certain things. And like on the main series, there was always like some random person like Sasha. Sasha was like supposed to be an expert marks person.
Right.
And it's believable in someone who never shot a gun before the apocalypse to have that skill. But I don't think June was ever one of those people that they were like, oh, you're so skilled in this random area.
Yeah. You would think, if anything, she would be, one of the worst shots because she's, a healer. So she would never not have an affinity to guns, or you wouldn't think she would.
No, probably not.
But again, the show does what the show needs. So
the other thing I was going to say about the whole this person has been doing this for years, quote unquote, that quote from Strike.
Mm-hmm.
But she only has this one pickle jar of the fingers.
Mm-hmm.
So does this mean that there are several jars of fingers that are out there for people to find? Like, does she, like, let's say she has this cabin, this shack she's in right now, which and then she decides to move on to some other place. Well, she better make sure to bring her electrical source with her too, whatever that is, because she's got to find the appropriate area. But let's say she moves from like some new location so that she doesn't get caught. Not that they're laying any traps for her anyway.
They're not looking for her
because they're not even looking really. Does that mean like they'll be like, we found the cabin that the person has been using. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, and here's the jar. It's got all our fingers in it. You know what I mean? Like, is that something that happens? Like, do they eventually find June's hideout, here and there and everywhere, and they find these random jars? Or is she like sending them back in the every 10th transport that she gets, they wake up and not only are their fingers gone, but the jar full of fingers is there with them, and they bring it back.
Yeah, right. It's kind of like, for every 10th finger you get like a bonus finger.
Yeah, it's like you get to punch that card for your free coffee.
Right. The other question that I have that I was thinking, again, the way I'm thinking is, it's like, okay, so she's cutting off their trigger fingers. How does she know what hand they use?
Yeah, there's really no way to know. In order to be sure, you would have to do it on both hands.
Wouldn't you? But that I didn't get the impression that she cut off both of their pointer fingers. No. like Shrike, she just cut off the one. Now with Shrike, because of the story she tells, you get the idea that, Shrike was holding a gun up to her head, so she had firsthand knowledge of what hand Shrike holds her gun in. But I'm just saying, you see some dim bulb zipping along on a raft. Well, righty or lefty? I don't know. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, I thought that was a little strange that, how does she determine that? But the thing on the fingers, did she have more jars or not? We never really saw what June was eating to survive. And so, maybe she got a little peckish and she would just have, what I would call finger food.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. I mean, protein source. You can't shake a stick at it.
She has power, so she could power up an oven and cook some bread, and she could certainly make some finger sandwiches.
Yeah, I mean, either's possible.
Exactly.
You're terrible. You're absolutely terrible. And your puns are terrible. Your finger puns.
It's all we have to work with here, okay?
Not finger guns.
Finger puns.
Finger puns.
Hey, you are free to give me a hand whenever you want.
Stop it. All right, so more unbelievable stuff. Dude shows up.
Ugh.
Okay. I love when he shows up. Do you remember? He knocks on the door and he goes, "Can I come in?" I'm like, Who the hell says that?
Yeah. It's just,
you've never met me before, and it's knock, knock, knock. Can I come in?
Yeah.
What?
And it's the apocalypse.
That's why, when he said that, I was like, who's this person? Is it someone June knows?
Yeah, right.
And it clearly was not. But I was like, at first I was like, oh, some person who's in cahoots with June. No, it's a stranger who just knocked on the door. And the dialogue was, can I come in?
Can I come in? And then she pulls a gun on him. And we find out that, we see her and she's like, not only is she doing the finger surgery stuff, she's also like posting these signs. What is it with these freaking guys and like leaving messages for people everywhere? I don't know.
Yeah.
They clearly, someone somewhere in their youth, must have some trauma of like someone didn't leave them a note, but she's running around and she's, nailing to trees and stuff these signs that say like Padre is lying to you and they'll take your children and, go away. This is a collection area or whatever. And then she starts seeing someone is writing on her messages of like, I need your help. Who are you? Can we talk? I need to find my daughter, stuff like that. And then this guy shows up and I just have to ask, and this is for everybody out there. Was it just me, or did everyone think that guy, whose name was Adrian, by the way, was the most annoying dickhead and was rooting for June to just fucking shoot him?
Well, I mean, look at how he started out. He started out like they were pals, and then when she pulled a gun on him, he was surprised. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, whoa, what's going on here? I'm like, you realize that, like, it's the apocalypse, right? You got the memo?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, and then he's like, well, let me tell you what's going on. She's like, I don't want to fucking hear anything about you. And I was just waiting. I kept hoping that June would be like, I'm going to count to 5. And when there won't be a 6. And if you're still standing here at 5, I'm going to shoot you in the face. And then as he keeps up with his little sob story that she clearly has no interest in, it'd be like 1, 2, 3. And then he's trying to talk about his, and, it's like, dude, she clearly doesn't care. And I don't know. I found that guy to be such a drag on this whole story that I was actively rooting for someone to kill him. And when, he finally let like the Walker kids eat him for lunch at the end, I was just like, good. So yeah, I'm wondering if anyone else felt that way too. I thought that character was just, nothing against the actor. It's not his fault, but oh my God, was that guy annoying.
Well, the way that they treat new characters, there's never any, like, they're not going to stay. They're not sticking around. So as soon as he showed up, I was like, oh, he's dead before the end of the episode. Because that's just how the knuckleheads roll. They don't write good stuff for the people that are here. And then they try and have this dramatic moment with this new person that they bring in, but then that person is gone by the end of the episode. So what's the point?
Usually they can't kill the main character, so they keep introducing new people that they can then bump off. So
yeah, they can't kill people, but they can not invite them back for the final season.
Right.
And you just have to assume that they're all dead. Like Sarah and Charlie and Wendell and I don't know, the multitudes of children that were part of their group back in the day.
Yeah, that's right. The Look at the Flowers gang and all those people. Yeah. Which
that's a really shitty way to treat someone who built a whole plane for you. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, they might have been on the raft too. Maybe they got incorporated into Padre. We don't know.
Never really know.
But my other big thing about Adrian was he pulls out this picture of his kid, and it was a freaking Polaroid picture. And I'm like, what year are we in here? Who still has a Polaroid camera?
I thought it was unbelievable when Negan and his crew had it. Mm-hmm. And that was only like, if you go by Judith years, Negan's heyday was only about 3 years in, maybe 4 at the most.
Right.
So how far into it are we? Because they said the time jump put them in line with the main series. We are 10 years in.
We're 10 years in, and the picture of the kid, she's the same age as she is as a ghoul.
Yeah.
So that means he took that picture, relatively close to when he lost her, when, Padre took her away from him. So I'm like, where did you get a Polaroid camera? I get it that this is the knucklehead's attempt to be like, well, he can't just show you his phone, which is kind of funny if you think about it, because why can't he? Everything else works in your apocalypse. Why can't the phone still work too?
Yeah, why not?
But yeah, that was another moment where I was just like, seriously, a Polaroid? It was already ridiculous, and then it just like the ridiculous factor went up like by 20 at that point. Yeah. I'm like, oh God, okay.
It would have been more believable if he had an old iPhone that someone had like etched a drawing of what his daughter looked like.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then he would have just held up his wrist and been like, friendship bracelets, we did them together.
That's right. Oh my God.
Yeah. And we already talked about it with the episode description, but it's yet again June needing to confront the quote unquote help me find my daughter trauma, because they haven't used that trope enough. Seriously, the June, what was that episode? That was season 4 that we got to meet, because that was when we met John Dory. Was season 4. So we got some June stuff then. So that's when we got the first stories about June and her daughter. It was 6 years ago. Wait.
Yeah.
Is that no? Well, no. Years, yeah, but like 4 seasons ago minimum.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, you've done nothing but go back and forth with this trauma over her daughter. And yes, I understand Morgan, the same thing with his son. But I'm like, dude, like, tap into something else, Yeah. I don't understand why they don't use why don't they use the trauma of losing John? You know what I mean? Like,
and John's dad.
Yeah, like that would be more appropriate, more time appropriate. Yes, I get it. She still has trauma over her daughter. And I'm not saying that wouldn't be there, but I'm saying like for that to be the one motivating, like, help me find my daughter over and over and over and over and over and over. It's just so unbelievable that it would work.
Well, and not only do they go back to that well, but then her reaction is always the same.
Yeah.
You know, that she tries to help someone, she tries to, to protect someone, and then she can't, and then she runs away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on to more ridiculousness. So of course it's Dwight and Sherry.
Of course it's Dwight and Sherry.
And of course that's their son. And of course he can only be saved by June. I mean, seriously?
Yeah, it's just Coincidence City, right?
Yeah.
Coincidence City.
She didn't. Now here's the thing. She didn't look at the other people, did she?
No.
Like the first group that when we see her pattern, she just she cuts the finger off, she puts them back in the thing and pushes them off to float.
Right.
So what inspired her to even look at the face and figure out, oh God, it's Dwight?
The only thing I can think of is that she kind of sees the scar.
Yeah, I mean a little bit. It is a little bit visible.
Yeah. And again, it's such a unique thing that, clearly she's like, holy shit, and then she pulls it apart, and then literally she's like, oh, she's like, no, like crap,
Damn it.
Yeah. Now I can't cut their fingers off. Can I cut their fingers off? Maybe. The thing I noticed too is really convenient that, boy, Dwight and Sherry sure recovered quick from those knockout darts.
Yeah, they sure did. I didn't make a note of it, but I was hoping we would talk about it. Yeah. Hello. Yeah. The other people, it took like all this time for them to wake up. And this one.
Yeah. I mean, she has enough time in the first sequence when she does it to cut both of those dudes' fingers off. And they're still out cold when she pushes the boat out into the swamp, right?
Yeah.
Here, she drags the boat to shore. And, of course, the one guy fell overboard when he got hit by the dart. So he's drowned. Yeah. And so she puts him down. And then she starts getting out her kit, and that's when she figures out it's Dwight and Sherry. And then the kid pops up because he's, hiding in the covers or something, and gets her at gunpoint. And then immediately Dwight and Sherry are like, oh, what's going on? And I'm just like, wow, that was really convenient drugs.
Yeah, no kidding. That's unbelievable. I mean, it's that it would work one way. And the thing is like, I would believe that they woke up that fast if we hadn't already seen the thing like 10 minutes before.
Right.
Less.
Right. And you have to give, the benefit of the doubt to June. She's a nurse. She's, an apocalyptic doctor. Right. She has you have to assume she has a pretty good working knowledge of anesthesia and, how much per dose and all that kind of stuff, right? And so why would it be so radically different from one, average person to another? I mean, I get it. Right. If she shoots some guy and he's like, 6'9", 380 pounds, he might recover a little quicker or not be affected as much as, shooting the guy or gal who's, 4'11" and weighs 90 pounds.
Yeah. And I agree, but if that were the case, like then you show like the big burly dude didn't wake up quite as quick or whatever, and then you show someone else who woke up differently. But there was literally no difference in the way Sherry and Dwight woke. No, they woke up at the same time.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's like that. It's if they had wanted to show that, which they totally could have. All you had to do was have Dwight like wake up first and then have him be like, Sherry, wake up. And she's like, what's going on? And then like shake her some more, you know what I mean? But it's just like, but why instill any believability?
They had a classic opportunity there in that Dwight should have woken up first, and then he should have shook Sherry and say, Sherry, wake up. And she should have said, her response should have said, oh, not tonight, Negan. I'm not in the mood. That would have been classic. Okay.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and then I have this comment later on because of shit that happens, but yeah, Dwight and Sherry is still the worst couple in the history of this apocalypse, without a doubt. I mean, I why are they together? Because they clearly don't want to be together.
I don't get it. I really don't.
I don't. It just makes no sense. So after they wake up, then oh my God, it's June. Oh my God, it's you guys. And then of course she figures out about it's their kid, and I don't know, what did he have, like an appendicitis or something? Isn't that what they?
Yeah, appendix, some kind of pain in the appendix area.
Yeah.
Which
And so then they put it together. Wait, you're the person that's cutting off people's fingers. And then I wrote this down, and June basically said that I just wanted to leave. And then my thought was, then why didn't you?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I get it. Like, you cut off Shrike's finger because of what she did when we get the backstory. I get that. That makes sense. But if you wanted to just leave these, people, alone, be like, screw you guys, I'm going home.
Yeah.
Why did you spend apparently, quote unquote, air quotes, years doing this crazy, I'm going to cut all your fingers off thing? I don't know. It just, I don't believe the motivation for her to want to do this.
Yeah. It made no sense. It really didn't.
And particularly given, again, her history. Right. Yeah. Where, when stuff goes south with her, she just goes off by herself.
Yeah. And it wouldn't make sense for her she's never done this. She's never said, I wanted to get away, and then just sort of stuck close to where she was.
Yeah. Well, and instead of just getting away, it's changed to like, well, I'm going to carry out this cockamamie vendetta plan.
Right.
I don't know. That was the big, that motivation was the thing that I didn't buy it at all. That she would come to that conclusion and go with, it's like a double thing. I didn't believe she would be doing this incredibly stupid plan, and I also didn't believe that the Padre people couldn't have stopped her by now.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially considering what Shrike said at the end when she was like, oh, as soon as we saw the fingers, we knew who it was. I'm like, well, then why didn't you do anything about it?
Yeah,
like,
how come you didn't go get her? I mean,
that feels stupid on so many levels. So we move on to more stupidity. Mm-hmm. They come up with some plan like, I can take care of him if you agree to do this and get me a boat. And I'm like, what do you want to? You've had access to. Why didn't she just take one of those boats?
Right, I go. She had hundreds of boats,
What's the difference between those dudes waking up in the boat somewhere or waking up on the shore and she has now taken the boat and she's gone?
Yeah. The only
Why wouldn't she just do that?
I think, and again, I have the benefit of having watched this. And
don't think when it comes to this, right?
I know. I'm sorry, but I have the benefit because I did watch this turd twice, but I believe the really annoying dude comes to her little shack and says, I want your help. And she kicks him out. And basically he says, I'm going to come back every day until you help me. And I think then we see her and she like puts the fingers and starts packing her stuff up. And I think it's at that point that she's like, I want to leave. And so her plan was the next boat that she is going to intercept, which happens to have Dwight and Sherry in it, she was going to take it. And if you remember, the kid gets the dart gun and is holding it on her, and then they struggle for it, and it goes off, and the dart punctures the raft. And
right.
so the
So
boat,
get me another raft.
right. So that's why. But I the first time I saw it, I thought the same thing. I'm like, well, you dimbulb, why didn't you just take one of the other boats from, the 50 people you cut their fingers off already,
Yeah, it makes more sense that way.
Yeah. But anyway, I believe that's why. Is that, once that guy showed up and was like, I'm not going to leave you alone until you help me. Then she's like, yeah, screw this, I'm leaving, type thing. So, but anyway, it's still bad.
Yeah. So more bad, we're going to go to this predetermined location.
Ugh.
That in the end, she was surprised that they found her there, which is like, it was their secret place. Why wouldn't they find you there? That makes no sense.
Yep.
Anyway, but so this is, this train car where they were doing experiments that June was involved in, and she's got all kind of guilt about all of it. And, she agrees to, do the surgery there in the dirtiest, dustiest, dingiest location known to man.
That's right.
Oh my God, so crazy.
But we should note that for season 8, this is the first appearance of the something on the wouldn't it be cool list.
Oh yeah. That's right. They're the latest entry.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's funny is that in the little featurette that's on AMC Plus after the episode, one of the knuckleheads actually says this.
Yeah. We thought this would be cool.
Yeah, like we once we thought of we thought of putting it in a train car. We thought this would be great because we could do all these cool things with the heads in the jars and do cool lighting and all this. And I'm like, that's not a way to write a story.
Yeah, that's not the way story writing works.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, who in their right mind would decide to put a surgical room on a train car?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean
yeah.
It's foolish.
I get it.
But and then we do have another of course here, because once they get in there, of course the train's power system still works because she just fires that baby right up.
Oh yeah. Why wouldn't it, Steve? Hello.
I know.
That's a stupid question.
I know. It really is. I'm sorry. I retract it.
Yeah, you should. So that the power, I mean, it works for the meantime until they do something stupid and shoot a gun and it goes off and it shorts out the box. Well, there's an override, but it's at the end of the train, but you can't go through the train because it's filled with the dead.
That's right.
Dead. And it's like, and as soon as they're like, be careful, it's, this is an old train car, I'm like, oh, well, that's going to come back. So they go to the front and they hit the emergency override and the power comes back on. And of course, Dwight and Sherry fall through the roof because, reasons.
Right.
And it drives me bananas that we're this far into the apocalypse. They shot one gunshot and like 2 minutes later, there's like a horde of zombies outside.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up on them. I'm like, There's that many just still roaming around like that?
That are close by, close enough.
That they get there in like a minute.
That they're there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's yeah. I agree.
I hate that.
I know. It's like, these two guys, they like kind of know the rules of the zombie universe they're in, but they just like apply them all to everything, right? Because we've seen before where like, there are like people standing on cars and the ghouls are surrounding the cars trying to get at them. And then like someone will like honk a horn down the street from them. And all the ghouls, even though there's like a person right in front of them, they will turn and walk towards the car horn.
Right.
And it's just like, why? Why would you do that?
Right.
It's I don't know. It's we do also get the Dwight and Sherry discussion on the roof right before they fall through it.
Yeah.
Where again, I just can you explain to me why are they a couple?
I don't know. I can't answer that question.
I mean, ever since this show. I mean, literally, ever since Dwight finally found her, they've, gone out of their way to not be together.
I mean, the moment where they see each other on the other end of the the alleyway when he's in that episode with him and Al, and they finally find Sherry, was amazing. That was such a great episode. And then everything went downhill from there.
Right. Then Sherry's just like, you know what? I'm really used to sleeping by myself right now. I mean, that's all I can think of. It's just, she's just like, yeah, I'm going to be with these like 6 dudes here. Don't worry, honey. It's all good.
I mean, how did they even make a baby? You know?
Yeah, I don't know. The only thing I can assume is that if they were to do a paternity test, it would be Shane's.
Yikes. Shane, responsible for so many unwanted babies in the apocalypse.
Shane is single-handedly, repopulating the earth.
Yeah. Oh, God.
So, yeah, I don't know. I just, as soon as they had that very unbelievable exchange of, we haven't been together since we got to Padre. Who talks like that? Why would anyone ever say that to someone else if both of them knew that fact?
Yeah.
I just, but as soon as he brought that up, I was just like, wow. I mean, you are the most uncouple couple I've ever seen.
True. It's true.
Yeah.
And more craziness in that scene. So one of the things we find out with this experimental bullshit is that the ghouls were being, before they turned, these are people that were bit, and they were trying to cure them with radiation. And so you've got all of these ghouls that have like radiation poisoning and like burns and things like that, or what they think looks like radiation poisoning.
Yeah.
We just finished watching Chernobyl, folks, and we know what radiation
we do. But at least they did do the thing where all their hair fell out.
Yes, they did do that.
So you did get all of these kind of, bald ghouls, and a lot of them had the kind of their version of radiation poisoning, little like blisters on their necks or faces or whatever. But yeah, and I know, that was a point that you made before we started, and it's in your notes here too, that, the idea of like trying to use radiation as a cure for the bites is interesting. The only thing that I found interesting about it is that, June is talking about Alicia.
Yeah.
When she says, I knew someone that got bit and survived longer than anyone I'd ever seen before, and that person had been exposed to radiation, and that's Alicia.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I kind of like that as I'm like, okay, well, at least this character remembers stuff that happened last season. That's good.
Yeah.
But
it proves that those things actually happened, and we weren't in like one like shared psychosis.
Yeah, right. Which would have been better, I think.
Right.
Would have enjoyed it more. But yeah, I don't know. June tells the story where it's someone else came up with the idea, and then of course when push comes to shove at the end, June reveals that she came up with the idea. And of course, and here we have another of course, because whose daughter do we find amongst the irradiated, bald dead ghouls?
Of course.
It's his, and then June comes up with another sob story about how she tried to take care of her, and then she went on the mainland and got bitten, and she got bitten on the back, and so she couldn't amputate, and then she thought of the radiation thing, and she did say it worked, but unfortunately it ended up killing her anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's an interesting idea, and I think you're kind of spot on that better writers would have been able to make something out of it that would have meant more.
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of my two little moments. But the thing is that they took something that was interesting, but they paired it with something that was not interesting, which is, I mean, so many things. But this is like horror series trope number 7,000, which is that the seemingly benevolent society was secretly conducting suspect experiments or whatever. Like, that's not It's not new information. That's not something like when she's like, Padre had this place, and I'm like, okay, that's not a surprise.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, and then like Dwight and Cherry are like, we never heard about it, and she's like, no, it was off the books. They didn't want anyone to know, and it's like, yeah, right. It's a secret lab. I get it.
Yeah, like I don't understand. Like, we never heard about it. Yes, because you're such trusted members of the society that you know all of the secrets that happen within it.
Right, sure.
That makes no sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you too, and I did not see this. I did not do a deep dive online to see if anyone else brought this up. But at one point, Sherry finds this like book, and it has like pictures of patients and like you know, sort of like reports and stuff. And they show it twice. And the second time they show it, it really looks to me like there's a picture of Charlie in there.
That would be interesting.
And again, she was dying of radiation poisoning, so maybe they, you know, let her get bit and then, you know, tested her or something. I don't know. I'm just wondering if anyone else saw that and maybe went, you know, confirmed it with the showrunners that was. I don't know. I
haven't seen anything surface yet, but it sucks because like on any regular show, people would go crazy with like, you know, I'm going to do an internet deep dive and see if someone found a picture or someone's, you know, and then there's a whole Reddit thread all about it. Mm-hmm. But there's just not as much excitement about this show. So I don't know that anyone is doing those deep dives, but I was like, they're showing this too much for this to not be a plot point at some point. And so I'm curious if that will come back and it's, I didn't notice because I only watched the once. I didn't see any resemblance, but I could certainly look again. I haven't seen anyone bring it up, but it doesn't mean someone isn't going to screenshot that and we'll have a good look at it at some point over the week. But
okay,
that would also be, oh my God, another interesting thing. Especially since they've said that Charlie isn't scheduled to come back, but if we had like some sort of closure to her storyline, that would be interesting.
And that's what I was thinking more than anything would be, you know, this would be just a way for them to kind of put a little Easter egg in of like, well, this is what happened to her.
Yeah.
And again, the next week's episode, it looks like Daniel's finally going to be in it, and he's like the leader of the army that's going to take down Padre. Maybe was with him, and we'll get that resolution from him.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. So surprising nobody, the dad goes and gets munched and whatever. But then again, surprising no one, Shrike and her people find them there at the train, and I have so many thoughts. But first of all, I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to actually give them some props and some kudos, which is they're the first out of all of the series since the Sam episode to show a child being bit. And
didn't the kid in World Beyond that they had to cut his arm off, didn't he get bit?
Oh, yeah. I guess I forgot about that.
Is his name Elijah? No, it was like Frodo or something.
Yeah, the one with the curly hair.
We called him Frodo, but I think that kid got bit, I thought, and they ended up chomping his arm off.
Yeah, but you got to admit, I wonder too, like, even though they were young, they were still kind of teenagers.
Yeah.
This kid is like a kid. He's only like 8 at the most, 7 or 8. And I was very surprised because as soon as they set up that stupid rigmarole with the head and the, using the, remote control to make it go closer and closer, it's a torture thing. So I was like, they're doing this to get June to say, I'll help you. Of course I'll help you. Please don't hurt him. Mm-hmm. That's what I figured was going to happen. I did not expect for her to follow all the way through and have the head chew on, little little Ren there. I
Well, she didn't go with the I'm going to threaten him till you agree to do what I want. Shrike went with the I'm going to give you a reason to want to start up these experiments again, because
right.
now you can try and save him.
Oh God. Which of course will work because it has to, because
absolutely.
it's Sherry and Dwight's kid.
Right.
Yeah, so I was very surprised that they did that. I did not think they were going to go that route. I really thought that at the very last second they were going to pull up or whatever. And I have to give them some kudos for that. I was very surprised. It's a traumatizing thing. It's hard to do. It's hard to show like kids being injured like on purpose like that. And they did it. I was frankly, I was so surprised. And like I said, if in a better show, that would have been like, this show was like, this episode was, great on this so many levels, and then, oh my God, they showed a kid being bit, and they did it as a form of torture. It wasn't an accident, it was on purpose, and but it's this show, so no one's gonna really talk about it.
I would also like be there to for the kudos line. What I'd say is, if we didn't know better, and
right, of course,
what you just said is that, like, look, the kid's not going to die, okay?
Right.
I mean, he's not, or if he does, he's not going to turn, like, he'll get killed some other way.
Right.
You know what I mean? But because we know that they're not going to kill him, the gravity, the gravitas of that moment is really reduced to almost nothing, because it's not dangerous.
Yeah, they would have been better off having it not be Sherry and Dwight's kid. It should have just been, no, we he's friends with our son, or we're not allowed to be near him. He's on another part of the the compound. Blah blah blah. But no, they made it be their actual son so that there's no stakes, and it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, and then we get that what I find, this weird motivation of, all of our people 7 years ago decided to, go the Padre way.
Right.
And it's like, okay, just now, Dwight and Sherry, you're deciding that, hey, you know what if we just took our kid and like went our own way? Really? Now? This is when you come up with that idea? I still don't believe that they would have ever decided, what would be really best for our first child and probably only child we're going to have in the apocalypse? Let's give them to strangers to raise. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yes, it's a great idea.
Yeah, I just, it's like, really, who would ever, what is it about Padre that it all would make them go, yeah, this is the place? I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think part of it is that they want to keep Padre a secret for, show purposes. So we don't, there's mystery. What is it? What's it all about? Who is the guy behind the mirror? All that, so they're not letting us as viewers see any evidence to support the, all of these characters going like, yeah, Padre is the shirt, man. Let's all live here and follow all these guys' rules. We don't get any of that.
Yeah.
But we do finish up this. We do finish up the episode with a little bit more finger trauma.
Yes, but more traditional finger trauma with, a knife.
With a knife and no anesthetic.
Yeah, because why would you?
No, because Shrike clearly wants to get her pound of flesh there. Although more probably about 6 ounces, but still, she just makes June put her finger on the table, and then one of her minions holds her hand down, and then she just starts to chop it, and June's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, like she doesn't know what's happening.
Right? Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
Which and you have to. Yeah, go ahead.
No, and I was gonna say, and then Shrike takes off like the finger cover. She's got like the false finger there or whatever, which of course we've never seen up until now.
No.
I got my finger taken off by you.
I had to learn to shoot with my other hand,
It was terrible.
Yeah, right. Right. And I wonder, how is it, you cut off the finger of a scientist like that, of a doctor. Yeah. You think it's going to affect your work at all?
Yeah, and you want her to continue these experiments, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either. I do want to make sure to talk about, I have a specific gripe that I want to discuss. So stupid.
Just one?
I mean, there are many gripes about this show, but this is very specific, and it's very kind of nerdy on my part. But I was going to bring it up last week, but I was like, I'm sure I'll have plenty of opportunity. So let's first, before we get into my gripe, we've got to lay the groundwork, which is, okay, so we jumped how far into the future? Like 7 or 8 years, something like that, because of the kids.
Yep.
Okay, so 7 years into the future. So 7 years ago, Madison, found Morgan or whatever, and Madison had been working for Padre. Mm-hmm. So sometime between that scene and when Madison was at the ballpark at the fire there, sometime between there and there is, X amount of years. Let's say, for sake of argument, let's just say 2, right?
Okay.
Who knows? So Padre probably wasn't brand new, or Padre had probably been around for a bit before Madison started working for them. So even if you just say 7 or 8 years that Madison's been there working for them, right? Or since Madison started working for them.
Right.
Here's my thing. That's a pain in my ass. There are hundreds and hundreds of bird names, genuses and species and names, like the ones they've used so far. They are using the most common bird names, and it's ridiculous because it's like, you have to think, okay, June is blue jay, right? So you would think that when they take on that name, there can't be anyone else named blue jay, or else then it becomes confusing. Right.
So either like the previous blue jays have all died,
yes,
and they recycle,
or they're dumb and they've picked some of the most common bird names for a practice that they've been using, one would assume, for at least 8 to 10 years, somewhere in that range. And you just now are starting to use, I don't know, like wren, lark, mockingbird, nightingale.
Yeah, like the most common,
blue jay.
I'm surprised we haven't had a cardinal and an eagle yet.
Yeah, like when those are happening soon, I'm sure. I just think if they had thought outside the box, I mean, it should be, I have a book. We are bird nerds at this house. Let me tell you, we have a book that is 3 inches thick, and it's a guidebook on birds. So for when you go birding and stuff like that, you can see which exact species or which version of it, And don't get me wrong, is it sexy to be purple finch or, blue-throated warbler? No,
Ooh.
that's hard to be, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that's a real one. I'm sure I think it's a yellow-throated warbler. But you know what I mean? They're going with the simplest names, the simplest titles.
The most common ones.
Yeah, and I'm just every time it drives me bananas. I can't.
Wouldn't you think that the day 2 of Padre, they would have given out the name Blue Jay to somebody?
Yeah, that was used 10 years ago.
Yeah.
There's no availability for Blue Jay or, nightingale.
Robin.
Yeah, wren.
Yeah. And they mentioned what's the name of the kid is Finch? Is that what they said?
Oh, Finch. Yeah. I kept saying Wren. I'm so sorry. Wren is Mo.
Yeah.
And Finch is this kid. Finch? Right. Are you kidding?
Yeah. Really? That's the first time, huh? Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. The whole bird name thing to me is just dumb anyway. I don't understand, why, whatever. It's they think they're being clever, so just let them go.
Yeah, if there was some sort of deeper purpose behind it, like, you belong to this group of sparrows, that's your little pod where you live, and all of your people that live in your cabin are all in the sparrow family. So you'll be this particular sparrow, which is like some like rare version or whatever. You know what I mean? Like there's just no thought behind it.
Why not number it? Your sparrow leader or sparrow 1, and then sparrow 2, sparrow 3, sparrow. Why not do it that way? I don't know.
There's no logic or thought behind it, and it's lazy. It's very lazy, like all of their writing.
It's lazy, and it's like this. And this is something that kind of happened on the main show too, is you got into this rut where the main characters of the show would run into these other groups that are totally unrealistic.
Right.
They're all either psychos or they have some, bizarre religion thing that they're supporting, or, here you have, Padre, right, which they're trying to make it as like, well, what is Padre? It's this, they're well equipped and they've got an island and they got all this technology and stuff. Yet apparently they're idiots because they name people with bird names. It's little things like that. I for one, I'm getting kind of tired of it. It's like, why can't our survivors run into a group of people that are kind of like our people?
Yeah. Why not? Because it wouldn't be dramatic and scary and whatever. No, all right, so that's my bird name gripe.
All right, so it's a good one. I like it.
Yeah. Any points that we did not talk about? I think we did pretty good this week.
Let's see. Just that we kind of mentioned it already, but I just wanted to say that we get in this episode our second appearance of something on the Wouldn't It Be Cool list. With that stupid hydraulic head extender thing that they use to push the dude's head into the kid so he can take a nibble out of his shoulder. And I'm just like, who would ever build that?
Right.
Who would ever take whatever that was and repurpose it to do that? That's dumb. Okay. Yeah. That, again, literally, that's something that someone in a writer's room thought up, and wouldn't it be cool to see that in a scene? And they just tried to figure out a way to work it in. I mean, it's the definition of the Wouldn't It Be Cool list. And it's just, I'm sick of it on this show.
Yeah. Agreed. I just look at stuff like that, the whole Ain't It Cool stuff, and I'm like, someone spent time and energy to put that together for what purpose?
Yeah.
And it used electricity and engineering and mechanics and whatever. And it's like, aren't there bigger fish to fry in the apocalypse?
Yeah. Well, and it's like if you want to infect someone, there are other ways to do it.
Yeah. Oh, God. Or do it yourself. Or just hold the head and put it near their shoulder. Why does it have to be some cool ass thing?
Yeah,
because you think it looks cool.
Yeah, and like you said, it's almost like a torture thing because it's slowly closing in on the person.
Yeah.
And, oh my God, they're gonna get bit. And okay, I guess that's exactly what scientists are trying to do when they're doing research.
Yes. God, awful. Well, there you go. That's that episode.
I feel better.
Yeah, it's kind of like purging.
It is
in its own special way.
And
all right, so
I would just like to point out that for all of us, except Alex Baelish, we have 10 episodes to go. Alex has 8.
Yeah, he does. I don't know why, but his math was weird. But
it was weird.
Yeah, Alex, you got 8 more to go. Kind of. All right, so we've covered everything. We feel better. We got it off our chest. We're going to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback we received for this episode and what's coming up on the podcast.
So stick around. We'll be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally going to get in. You better get ready for it.
No!
Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a weekly podcast covering the hit AMC programs The Walking Dead and Fear the Walking Dead. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the latest episodes. Aim for the Head, available on iTunes. You can also follow them on Facebook.
The following is an emergency action message. Civil authorities have identified a biological threat that they deem credible. This threat could potentially affect the entire continental United States.
The dead are returning to life and attacking the living.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a man up bad and he's attacking another man. Looks like he's biting him, like on the arm.
The initial signs are puzzling, unclear.
Getting pulled out of their cars and thrown to the ground. It looks like the bus passengers are biting their victims.
Soon, however, the reality is clear and undeniable.
The crisis involving the recently dead continues. Parliament today passed a law that requires all bodies of the recently deceased to be registered and turned
Toxic
over.
Bag Productions has captured the sounds of the zombie apocalypse and brought them to your gaming table. Background ambiences, zombie attacks, and radio transmissions that set the scene for your modern zombie adventure. Download MP3s from drivethrurpg.com or toxicbag.com.
Hey everybody, we are back. We're going to jump right into our feedback right off the bat. And this week, I guess I'm going first. So our first piece of feedback we received was from the originator of the international desk. It's our pal Andy from Germany.
All
Hey,
right,
Andy.
hello.
Yeah. We're so glad you're sending in feedback for Fear. I mean, I'm sorry you're watching it, but I'm glad that you're sending us feedback. Andy's a little bit behind on the episode. His feedback is for the previous episode. So Andy wrote in via the email and says, "Hello, Diana, and hello, Steve. The Walking Dead is back, and so am I." Yes, you are. It's really great to hear you talk about it again. I missed Steve's dirty laughter. Maybe that's the laugh he means. I'm curious to know what that means. Expound on this, Andy. We need to know detail. All right. He continues on to say, I have to say I wasn't disappointed by this episode. It was okay. Since you talked about earlier seasons, I was never a big fan of Fear. The main topic of the series, the two psycho sons and their parents, it was never my cup of tea. My favorite season was 4, the first half, before the filthy woman shows up.
That would have been the Vultures part of that season.
Yes, the Vultures part. Before we got to the dirty, filthy marker lady.
That's
what
right.
did we call her? Yeah, something like that.
That was it.
Dirty, filthy marker lady.
DFML.
Okay, he continues on and says, what confused me the most about this episode, you didn't even mention, and this is, of course, the episode 1, when we had Mo and Morgan and Madison, obviously.
And Ren. So we had Mo Rens.
Oh, and we had Wrens, yes. So he continues and says, I thought Morgan doesn't know who the real parents of baby Mo are. Then he mentions Isaac and Rachel, and I checked the wiki for them, and they are both white. And he includes some links to the Walking Dead fandom wikis, which had some entries on Isaac and Rachel, who are Mo's parents. And he says, so I'm unsure if the showrunners thought it would be confusing for the viewers if Morgan's adoptive daughter looks too different from him, or if Morgan was lying about her real parents. So before I go on, I wanted to address that. And I think if memory served, yes, he is correct. The parents were white,
Yeah.
But
well, Rachel.
But they were both like dark haired.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that her husband was Hispanic.
Or she was, one of the two.
Somebody, either one of them were, and I can't remember. And we saw more of Rachel because obviously the husband dies
right away. Yeah,
right away.
Yeah.
But so we see a lot more of the Rachel character. But I could swear that one of them was Hispanic, which would lead to the skin tone having a little bit more melanin, which I think is what Andy is referring to.
Yeah. And of course we all remember Rachel is the one who tries to drive away from the impending nuclear blast and then gets a flat tire and then decides she's going to fix it. And then the car falls on her and literally, breaks the leg in what I believe is referred to as a compound fracture. And,
did that come up? I can't remember.
I'm not sure, but it literally the bone is sticking out of the skin, and she like still tries to like drag the baby, and eventually she puts the baby on her back and then kills herself and ties herself to the dog, so her ghoul self will follow after the dog to try and eat it. Yeah. Hopefully that means she'll run into someone. And of course she runs into Morgan, and that's how Morgan gets the baby. So yeah. Yes. But he totally knows who the parents are.
Yeah, he does know the parents. I think he's just not telling Ren or Mo. No. Because it's immaterial. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Parents are gone. It's your
biological parents aren't here, but Grace and I are your parents. We raised you, so on. Right, you're right.
Yeah. So moving on from that point, he continues and says, "What didn't convince me is that Madison didn't find a way to kill herself in the cell. This is an interesting point. Mm-hmm. There is a metal chair and a metal bed, and if the room is filled with oxygen, a single spark will make it burst into flames." He's
absolutely.
Not wrong.
Yeah, that's the Apollo 11 fire.
Yeah, exactly. I think the question of why Morgan changed his mind about Padre was answered. He had to call them to save Mo, and therefore he decided that she is safer at Padre. There is nothing more to it. This decision even makes sense since an island is the perfect place for a community in The Walking Dead, except there is a nuclear strike, of course. Greetings from Germany, Andy. And he puts in, P.S. I am a Mo-Ren. I have seen every single episode of Fear.
Wow. Welcome to the club.
He's an international member.
That's right. Your T-shirts and buttons are on the way.
They're in the mail.
Although I would question you a little. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Madison take baby Mo?
I mean, in the beginning, yeah.
So yeah. I mean, when you say Morgan changed his mind, I guess you're referring to the flashback in the swamp. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, maybe.
That he couldn't save her from all the swamp ghouls that were incredibly slow, and he somehow couldn't kill the 10 of them that were there, and so he had to call Padre into guy. I guess that's what he's saying. Yeah. So yeah, you're right that we did get a reason, an explanation for his change, his motivation. Yeah. I just didn't believe it. I just, Morgan doesn't strike me as the kind of guy that would just give up on, a child like that and be like, well, I clearly can't. Right? No, this is the guy that tried to build a town out of the dam area, right? I mean, he's once he gets an idea in his head, he's the guy that thought, dropping all those stupid boxes off with take what you want and leave what you don't is a good idea. So I don't know. I just find it hard to believe that he'd be like, but I can't raise this kid. You take him. So
yeah.
But it's a cool viewpoint, man, and thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah, thanks for writing in, Andy. We look forward to hearing from you again next week.
Absolutely. Yeah. I look forward to seeing what he thinks of the of Dr. June Phalange's choo-choo train.
Yeah, her crazy choo-choo train.
All right, so moving on, we are also in the international desk. We're going to stay right there, and this came via the email, and it's from England from our pal Bev too.
Hey Bev.
Hey Bev, what's going on? And she starts off, says, "Hi guys. Well, this was a little better than last week's episode. The testing for a cure was an interesting plot thread, especially the twist of having June as the pioneer. My issues with it are the same as last week. Characters acting in a way that they wouldn't. I think, although chopping off people's fingers was pointless, June cutting herself off from everyone after losing a child makes sense. She has done this before, and I would add in parentheses, a lot. She goes, however, after everything that Dwight and Honey, she refers to Sherry as Honey in this one, have been through, it makes no sense for them to join Padre. I agree. I don't see any of these people joining Padre, but looking at all of the groups that they've been asked to join since the Knuckleheads took over, why would they ever say yes, right? None of these groups are ever good people. She goes on to say, can someone explain to me why two characters who hated having to do Negan's dirty work would agree to do the same for Padre? Why were they happy to go along with people stealing children but unhappy with the testing on bite victims? That's a good point. I'm sure, and they've justified it that they're not, air quotes, stealing children, they're saving them, right?
Yeah.
And didn't Morgan say that, he only took kids that were on their own or that parents willfully gave up? Yeah. So, he kind of had that justification of, well, I'm not, separating them from their parents. I'm, kind of, doing it if there are no parents, or if the parents are saying we can't do this, you need to do it. But whatever. It is potato.
Yeah.
She goes on to say, yet again, we've seen that the writers are unable to run two separate plot threads through an episode. I know. It's like, Jesus. This is what I was talking about earlier when we were talking about the episode, and it was Bev's comment. And she goes, I mean, what was the tagged on Morgan and Madison bit at the end? Also, why the hell would Madison help him escape again? Old Madison would have escaped on her own and left him to die by now.
She's not wrong. And I agree. I didn't put it in my notes because it was so stupid and tacked on at the end. I didn't even want to talk about it. The stupid Morgan and Madison scene. It made no sense. It has no motivation in reality. And it's dumb. And why was it there?
Well, and why didn't he jump out and help her and then they both could have gotten away?
I don't know. Don't try to insert logic on this show. That's your first mistake.
And then Bev goes on to say, I think if they had given it a bit more thought, they could have merged last week's and this week's episodes together. I know, that's what I was saying before, that I knew you had mentioned this, Bev, and I agree with you. It is very bothersome and annoying to me that, they cannot do multiple story threads in an episode. They just don't want to do it. And it's, that's great if you have a cast and it's 3 people, fine. But when you have this many folks, I want to see them.
Yeah. Agreed.
So I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
She goes on to say they could still have had Morgan and Madison escape at the end of the episode, but have them overhear a radio saying what was happening on the train. Hearing that Dwight and Honey's kid was in danger would have given the kick up the butt Morgan needed to get some shirt done.
Yeah.
And I agree. And she goes on to say, my rant has gone on long enough. Keep up the good work, Bev. And then she ends it in parentheses with very sunny Devon, UK. And so I'm glad that you're still enjoying the good weather. And I agree with all the points there. And I would add on to it that if they would have followed your plan, we all would know with 100% certainty that they would have overheard what was going on the train, because every radio in this universe always works perfectly.
It does. Yeah. Why wouldn't it, Steve? They have an unlimited supply of electricity on this island.
I'm just going to think about the finger trauma right now.
Thanks for writing in, Bev.
Yeah, thanks, Bev.
Good points. Really good points this week.
Absolutely.
Love it. Yeah. Earlier today, Alex Baelish, who is our next up, sent me a message via Facebook Messenger. I was like, oh, we're just going to send our feedback the direct method. And no, it wasn't feedback. It was literally just a link to an article titled, Fear the Walking Dead Should Have Ended Seasons Ago. So I can share the article on our Facebook page if you want. It's on the Collider, collider.com, And the subheading is Fear the Walking Dead hasn't brought us anything new since season 3, which I agree with. I totally agree. And it's a really good article, and they make a lot of really good points. Saying that it was, supposed to be this cool, interesting way to look at the universe amidst Walking Dead sort of already running. And it says here, just a couple of lines from the article. At the beginning, there's some stuff about it that says, starting slowly, it lacked the nail-biting intensity of The Walking Dead. Fans had been promised a pre-apocalyptic expansion of The Walking Dead, with this show filling in the blanks before society fell. It delivered on that promise in some ways. In other ways, it didn't. It was disappointing for audiences hoping for awe-inspiring catastrophe and apocalyptic end times to discover most of the story was restricted to a fenced-in Californian suburb. So if the show risked running out of steam in the early days, how has it endured for 8 seasons? So it goes through some stuff that it did really good. Then it starts talking about where it really sort of fell off, the wagon. It started to really suck. And then they sort of wrap up the article by saying, talking about this season in particular. And they say Kim Dickens' reintroduction for the final season also feels somewhat calculated and designed to bring lapsed fans back to the show or boost ratings. I completely agree. Yeah. And this sounds really great at the end, where they say, Fear's best season was its 3rd, and maybe the show should have ended there. And even now with its new season, it still doesn't feel like any risks are being taken. What do the showrunners have to lose? This is the final season of Fear the Walking Dead, and fans must be happy about this. But can we really watch another season that has emulated the previous one by breaking it into 2 mini seasons? Agreed. So lots of really great points in there. It's actually a really good article. So thank you for sharing it, Alex. It made me laugh out loud when I saw the title of the article. Yeah. But it does have some really good points. I like that everyone pretty much agrees that season 3 was probably the best. And they made some good points about how not only was it the best of this series, like if you look at the series as a whole, but they made some points in there about how just on its own, that season was really great, comparing it with other television shows.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't, it wasn't just it's the best out of the 8 of the Fear the Walking Dead, but when that was on, it was some of the better television that was actually on at the time. I know that that's difficult to imagine actually being true, but it was true.
It's funny. I'm sure I've said this before, but one of the biggest letdowns that I have about this show happened right away, because when they first announced it, all of the premiere marketing that they did on the show was that it was going to be the zombie apocalypse from the beginning. So basically all the time that Rick was in the coma, that's what we're going to see. Right. Mm-hmm. And they kind of did that till like the end of episode 3. And then it pretty much just became, they, instead of calling it Fear of the Walking Dead, they should just called it More of the Walking Dead. Because it was same
West Coast Walking Dead.
Yeah, because it was the same show as the main show, just a different group of people, which is fine. That's, in my view, that's not what I was promised. I wanted to see the big world picture of, what did the government do? How long did it last? When did it fall? All that stuff. And we didn't really get much of that. And I understand that's expensive to do all that kind of stuff. But anyway, I agree. And I also agree with, what you had said and what the article said, that season 3 was the high point of the show. Yeah. And, not surprisingly, they got rid of the original showrunner, and they replaced him with our current people. And the show has, basically just gone down and down since. I mean, they haven't come close to what it was in season 3. But yeah, it looks like it's a really cool article, and definitely post it so everybody can take a look at it.
Will do. Cool. Thanks again for sharing it, Alex. It made me laugh, but it's got a lot of really good stuff in there. So I really appreciate it. Thank you.
That's really cool, man. All right. Moving on, our final piece of feedback comes from the Facebook, and this is from our pal Lisa Dupree.
Hello.
But hello, Lisa. And Lisa says, and I love this.
It's great. It's perfect.
Nothing like brutal honesty. So she goes, so I can't really give you my reaction because, full disclosure, I haven't been watching for a long time. And
She's such a smart person.
She really is. It's just like, yep, you know what? You're much better off. Much better off.
Yeah.
And she goes on to say, I'm taking this opportunity to thank you guys for all you do. Oh, that's really nice. She goes, you guys watch the show, so I don't have to. I get the joy of listening to you talk about it without the anger of sitting through bad writing, which makes me crazy, ragey. Thanks for taking the bullet for me. Oh, Lisa, you are
that's so
welcome.
sweet. Yeah.
You are welcome. And you're going to have to, because of this writer's strike here, we're going to be looking possibly for stuff to review. So you're going to have to give us the lowdown on, what's a really good Korean drama, because we really loved Kingdom and would like to, if there's something that you know of, we're certainly potentially could be looking for stuff. So please let us know.
Totally true. That goes out to Lisa and also everybody who's listening,
Yeah.
We talked about the possibility that I'm not sure if it would affect. I think they're finished with filming, but writers still add certain things in here and there. There still may be some writing work to be done, but I think the writer's strike may affect the scheduling of how they're putting stuff out. So we may not see the second part of this season until later than they were expecting, because they want to do something else or whatever it may be. So we both agree, Steve and I, that we should have like something in our back pocket to cover just in case we end up with like a big gap of time. Yeah. So you guys think about that too. Keep it in your brain. I know people have, they actually mentioned it in this article. There's that new dystopian show Silo that I think people have started watching that has some good reviews, but that's just an idea. It doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be a series. It could be a movie, whatever. Keep some thoughts in your back pocket and get ready to give them to us if we need them. Sure. But yes, we're looking right at you, Lisa.
Absolutely. And you're right. We don't really know how the strike's going to affect a show like this where the showrunners are the writers. So do they go to work and just be executive producers, or are they like, no, I'm on strike? Again, we don't really know how this is all going to fall out. So it will. This week, there's another podcast that I listen to, and their TV national TV guy is coming on, and the host had said that he would give an update on what's happening with the writer's strike. So hopefully I will get a little bit more up to date info on what's going on with it. Are they close to settling? Are they miles apart? We'll see. Everything that I've seen indicates that they're not. Yeah. That the writers are not getting what they want to hear yet. Nope. So we'll have to see. But next week when we record, if there's anything of note, I will try and remember and bring it up. So.
Yeah, definitely. Great feedback, everybody, and thank you so much for everybody writing in. We appreciate it. So what's coming up on the podcast? So next week we'll be covering Fear the Walking Dead, episode 3 of this final season, season 8. Title of the episode is Odessa, and this is the actual description that's on AMC right now, which is Mo's hunt to prove Padre's true intentions has her in over her head as she's drawn into the larger web of secrets.
Ooh.
Secrets.
You do see Daniel
Yes, he's in those clips for next week. Yes.
And they reference something like, we're going to take, someone has, I don't know if it's Madison or Morgan or someone, or Dwight and Sherry, somebody, and they say, we're going to take you to the commander. And then they go, well, who's the commander? And then they show Daniel. So my guess is that he is the leader of this large group that the really annoying guy in this episode mentioned. And we also see Madison like smash that mirror.
Oh yeah, the two-way glass that they were using in the first episode.
With her sledgehammer, and she says, no more hiding behind the mirror, and she smashes it. So maybe they're going to reveal a little bit more about who Padre is. So let's see.
I think it's short-sighted. I know I've heard already people referring to Padre, the person, as a he based on the voice. But I mean, they have access to all this stuff. Why wouldn't they have some kind of voice modulation software?
Yeah, I agree. Maybe it's Shrike. Maybe she's the leader and she's created this persona. The man behind the curtain, right?
You never know.
And the other thing too, I'm starting to wonder if the whole Padre storyline is going to wrap up in the first part of this last season.
You think so? And then there'll be something else, like some other journey that happens in the second half?
Yeah, and the second 6 episodes are going to end the show, and is it going to be reuniting with characters from other shows, maybe?
Possibly, question mark, yes.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we, learn more about the CRM. I don't know. I mean, I'm just getting the feeling that the whole Padre storyline is going to be these 6 episodes, and then the next 6 episodes are going to basically, we're going to get like 2 mini seasons in the finals.
Yeah.
That I'm wondering if that's going to happen, and that's my gut feeling right now.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Yeah. All right. Anything else that we need to discuss before we let these people go?
The only thing I would say is that I have a little more than 3 weeks before this year's Living Dead weekend takes place out in Monroeville, and unfortunately, Miss Driscoll is not going along with me this time around, but it's still going to be a good time. So.
You guys are going to have a blast. It's going to be so many people there.
Yeah, there's like over 60 guests that have been I don't think they've even announced all of them yet. They've announced most of them though. Mostly announced. And it's a huge cast reunion. There's some of the people that are going to be there. This is like the first time they've ever gone to a show as a guest. So it's
that's so exciting.
Some really, really cool people, like the nun zombie's going to be there.
Yep.
And so I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be pretty great, I think. And like I said, it's 3 weeks away. And if you're at all interested, it's livingdeadweekend.com.
Yeah.
And you can get all the details. So.
Such a good time. Are you guys going to do the tour again?
I don't think we are.
Yeah, because this would be 3 times for you.
3 times for me, and
twice for Jody. Yeah.
Twice for Jody, and there's so many people that I want to get.
Yeah.
That I don't think I can afford to kill 3 hours of one of the days going on the tour. So
that's true.
Yeah.
But it is highly recommended. Oh my God. Others.
It's so great. It is so great. And if you've never done it, you Larry is so great. And it's totally worth it. I think it's like $50, but oh my God, it is money well spent. So
it is very, very, very worth it. All right. Well, that does it for us this week, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Stay tuned for more torture. And we're not talking about the fingers here. We're just talking about the actual show itself. So we are not excited to bring you more of this, but we will do our duty.
She said duty.
And bring you our play-by-play and our thoughts. And obviously you guys are enjoying them, so we're going to just keep doing them week by week. So that's going to be it for us this week. We will talk to you again next week. As always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
Don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because body shots just don't work. To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed. Just remember what Sherry's code name is.
I do remember. Pig. Dirty pig.